Hello everyone, this is Scarzig and welcome to the Lyonar section of my Shim'Zar card set review. Let's dive right in. To start off, before I review the Shim'Zar cards for Lyonar, I do want to go over the Divine Bond change. It was increased from 2 mana to 3 mana, so please keep that in mind while we go over the new cards. This technically isn't a nerf. They reverted a buff that they had made a while ago, because Divine Bond did used to cost 3 mana a long time ago. Then they reduced it to 2 mana when they changed from 2 card draw to 1 card draw. Fun fact. So Divine Bond now costs 3 mana again, which is, it still does the same thing. You just can't combo it with itself as easily, which is kind of nice. So first off, we do have Ironcliff Heart. Transform a friendly minion into an Ironcliff Guardian for 4 mana. When this card was spoiled, my gut was telling me that this was absolutely ridiculous and that it was broken. Why would you even release this card? Divine Bond, Ironcliff Guardian was already such a huge problem, and people were like, such a huge problem to begin with. And after I thought about it a little bit, I realized that Ironcliff Heart just isn't as good as I think a lot of people would believe. People would have you believe. It's not really that good. Let me collect my thoughts. First of all, Divine Bond again is getting worked up to 3 mana, which makes Ironcliff Heart Divine Bond a 7 mana combo for 13 damage. That requires that you already have a minion on the board, and 13 damage around 7 mana is a lot more common in Duelyst, right? Because, once you get to 7 mana, that's when people are going to start bursting you from around, 10, 12 mana, so that's a bit within burst parameters, I guess you could say, for the game. Outside of that specific combo, which is what people were worried about, you can, transform something that's already been dispelled or weakened or battle pets or something like that into an Ironcliff Guardian. So you get additional bodies onto the board, but even if you are forced to play something like a 2-drop out of hand and then transform it with Ironcliff Heart, you're getting a 6 mana Ironcliff Guardian for 2 cards. And you're just going to be even further behind if you're forced to do something like that when you're behind out of desperation. I would say that throwing down a 2-drop Holy Immolation combo for 6 mana is going to be stronger than doing it with an Ironcliff Heart. I could see a couple decks running maybe 2 of these, because, squeezing out a couple extra Ironcliff Guardians from your deck can always come in handy. But I think that this spell isn't going to be as ridiculous as people first thought it was going to be. But it'll definitely see play, because if you're playing even a Battle Pets oriented deck and you start to get spawns of Battle Pets that aren't as good, like Oni or Fog, then you just make it into an Ironcliff Guardian. So that's always a big plus. Next we have Afterblaze, which I really like this card. It's a reverse killing edge. Instead of instead of +4/+2, Afterblaze for 3 mana is going to give you +2/+4. And if the minion you cast this on has Zeal, you draw a card. So you can power up a Windblade Adept, your Silverguard Knight, your Solarius, your Suntide Maiden, and they're going to get you a lot of value. And it replaces itself. The only problem with Afterblaze is that Divine Bond still exists, and so Afterblaze is not going to see play. The only people that are going to use Afterblaze, a really decent buff spell that draws you a card, over another really good buff spell that can just instantly win you the game, are going to be hipsters like me. I'm going to run Afterblaze over Divine Bond, but I think it's really solid. It's just that because Divine Bond exists, it just completely overshadows this card. And it's also nice because you get your 420 jokes in there with the Afterblaze, and a lot of people were saying that it looks like a golden clown fell over. So Afterblaze is hereby referred to as the golden clown shoes, and you aren't going to see it played unless you're versing me on the ladder. Next for Lyonar we have Sun Wisp, which is a 2 mana 2/1 opening gambit draw a card. This is exactly what Lyonar needed. They needed just a little bit of card draw. This actually really comes in handy for Lyonar, even though it has a really bad body that you aren't going to be able to get value out of to heal. Getting, a little bit of card draw into Lyonar is pretty good, because normally the way you would win against, aggro tempo Archeon this past meta was that you hopefully drew into the correct answers and just outlasted them. But with Sun Wisp, they might be able to refuel and be a bit more consistent, and I do like that it has such a weak body, because that makes it more centered purely around its effect. You want to add this to your deck if you are running a deck that is going to make use of that card draw while still needing another 2-drop, and you aren't going to be able to combo Divine Bond with this because it only has 1 HP. So overall, really solid. Next we have Slow, 0 mana 1/4 provoke battle pet. Now, the thing with Slow I wasn't really too impressed by was the fact that it is a battle pet. You can directly compare this to Rock Pulverizer, which is a 2 mana 1/4 provoke. The thing about Rock Pulverizer, though, is that 1/4 stats are really weak compared to the damage output your opponent can do. You can, sort of delay them for a turn with Rock Pulverizer. And normally what you would do with that minion is you wouldn't attack. You would just leave it sit there to gum up your opponent's plan, what they're trying to do, and then force them to deal with it. Because Slow is a battle pet, it's going to move and attack into things. And so my initial thoughts about this card was that it was actually really, really bad. But I guess if you're running like a really swarmy Lyonar deck, what Slow allows you to do is move 2 forward, summon it diagonally for free, and then if you have another 2-drop, you can take that mana and then, maybe develop from there with another 1-drop or something. So it has potential to actually get some different bodies on the field while also gumming up your opponent, but we're going to have to see if Lyonar can afford to flood the board and still have enough cards if they get blown up, because, having Slow and War Surge might work alongside Fighting Spirit as well might work. So my thoughts are this is bad unless you're building your deck specifically around swarmy stuff, and it still might not be good enough. Dawn's Eye. I really like this card. It's a 6 mana legendary artifact for Lyonar. Your general gains +4 attack, which, is undervalued for 6 mana, right? And at the end of your turn, you repair all of your artifacts to full durability. So if you can equip Dawn's Eye on top of an Arclight Regalia, you basically instantly win the game. Your opponent has to have 1 source of damage to get through Arclight Regalia's effect of negating the first 2 damage that you take. Then they need to deal 3 separate instances of damage to break the Arclight Regalia, and if they fail to do that, the effect of Dawn's Eye is going to repair Arclight Regalia, and Dawn's Eye is going to repair itself. So if you can't clear this thing, then Lyonar General is just going to punch you to death, because they'll have +6, right? Arclight Regalia gives you +2, and then Dawn's Eye gives you +4, so you have an 8 mana general that has, a pseudo force field from Arclight Regalia just chasing you down, clearing all of your minions. Absolutely nuts. I think that once this card catches on in the meta, people are going to have to go back to running Rust Crawlers right away. We're going to be seeing a lot of this played, in my opinion, because at 6 mana, if you aren't horribly behind and you have to fish for 2-drop Holy Immolation to bring yourself back into the game, Dawn's Eye, you just equip it and just go to town. And frankly, if your opponent if you're even or ahead, Dawn's Eye is ridiculous. And I think that Lyonar has the tools that they aren't going to be ridiculously behind at 6 mana all the time. So Dawn's Eye is going to be clutch, and that's if you have to equip this thing raw. Like I said, if you can play it on top of an Arclight Regalia that your opponent hasn't had a chance to deal with, then you're golden. And if your opponent has you down to 1 charge left on your Arclight Regalia, then you just equip Dawn's Eye and then at the end of your turn, it just repairs your Arclight Regalia. It's absolutely nuts. So next, Fighting Spirit, which I just briefly mentioned. Give all friendly minions +1 health. Put a random battle pet into your action bar. This is actually really good. My initial thoughts, I was like, random battle pet. And then, once I got a look at the battle pets that are possible to get, and giving all of your friendly minions +1 health is already really decent value, because making a 2/3 into a 2/4 is really good, because then it can survive Dancing Blade, Saber Sign Tiger, Phoenix Fire, that kind of stuff. Making your Silverguard Knights into 3/6s. It's that +1 HP can really come in handy sometimes to push your minions over into making them safe from certain threats that would normally be used to take them out, which is why Kara's Bloodborne spell was so good. It also not only made minions more threatening that had good effects on them, it also made it so that certain answers you would normally use against those things wouldn't work. So Fighting Spirit gives you a little bit of that, honestly. Giving minions HP is a lot better than giving them attack if you are looking to play a swarmy control game. Because this might allow, it might allow something to survive with 1 HP, then your opponent has to take its full attack again if it has to trade another body into it, or hit it with their general another time. So this is really good, and it replaces itself with a battle pet that, if you don't like it, you can just cycle it back into the deck. And this is going to be crazy fuel for swarmy battle pet Lyonar decks, but overall, really solid. Fizz is the Lyonar battle pet, one of them. 2 mana, 3/3 to restore 2 health to a minion or general. This is just an extra healing proc for Lyonar. It's got really great stats for its cost, of course. A 2 mana 3/3 is solid. It's kind of meh to play this on turn 1. The same way playing Healing Mystic on turn 1 kind of sucks, because you're missing out on that heal effect. But, I mean, it's just another cheap heal proc that's going to leave a decent body behind that your opponent needs to deal with. And if you're comboing this with other effects like, Sunforge Lancer, which I'll get to, or Radiant Dragoon, it might even be getting even more value for you. So we'll get to those in just a second. Next, we have Lucid Beam. I had actually written some notes on this card already because we knew about its effect, right? Deal 2 damage to an enemy. If a minion or general was healed this turn, deal 4 damage instead. Lucid Beam used to cost 3, deal 3 damage to an enemy, and if a minion or general was healed this turn, deal 5 damage instead. And my notes basically were trashing Lucid Beam in that form, saying that it's way too expensive for what it wants to do. Lyonar has no use for that sort of spell. And so 2 damage for 2 mana is pretty solid. It allows Lyonar to actually deal with range threats outside of being forced to have a Sunbloom or a Tempest for them. And if a minion or general was healed this turn, you just deal 4 damage instead. So this is kind of nice to clear really large threats in Lyonar, which they kind of usually have issues doing outside of Martyrdom. If you can't hard remove something with like a Martyrdom, you have to jump through a lot of hoops with like multiple procs of your Sunriser and hoping you have an Arclight Regalia, that kind of stuff. So Lucid Beam kind of fills that need that Lyonar needed. But time will tell if this is truly worth it. At the new mana cost and new numbers in the description, Lucid Beam is a much more attractive choice. But again, I'm still wary. It has potential, but I'm not sure if it's actually that good. So next we have Radiant Dragoon, a 3 mana 3/4, which again is technically above the stat line for 3 mana. At the end of your turn, give a friendly minion +1 health. So if you summon Radiant Dragoon, bam, you play it down on 3 mana, and then whatever 2-drop you summoned last turn is going to get +1 health. If you summon Radiant Dragoon on its own, it gives itself +1 health. So this thing is actually really, really insane. And Lyonar finally has something to go in the 3-drop slot, but that's not Silverguard Knight. And then Radiant Dragoon, if your opponent doesn't deal with this, it's going to give you so much ridiculous value, and I absolutely love it. That +1 health isn't a heal, but what it does do is it makes your units a bit more. It makes your units a bit stickier, gives them a chance to hang around more as they're injured, and then you get to heal them and get more value out of it. A lot of times with when you're playing Zeron, when you're playing Lyonar, you afterglow something and you aren't getting the full +3 heal. So you're missing out on a couple points of value, so to speak. You really want the heal proc, but your Radiant Dragoon allows you to get that overheal value almost, and this is just really solid. Probably an auto include in non-Lyonar decks, just because it allows you to push your minions, again, like I was talking about with Fighting Spirit, push your minions to that next level where they become immune to certain threats and certain removals and make them that much harder to deal with. And then you have stuff snowballing and sticking onto the board. If you're playing swarmy stuff and you're playing multiple Fighting Spirits or War Surges or something, this is just really solid. One of the best cards Lyonar picked up this set for sure. And the art is badass. A Dragoon. I can't wait to play this damn card. Next, we have Sky Burial, a 3-mana spell that destroys a minion that is not nearby any general. And so, this is another spell that's like, it's a targeted decimate, and it's the same mana cost as Martyrdom. So, you're basically able to destroy something with Sky Burial and not heal your opponent, which is kind of nice for a really aggressive Lyonar decks, because every once in a while you're forced to Martyrdom something that's really, really fat, and then you just heal your opponent out of range where you can't kill them anymore, and then you play yourself. And so what Sky Burial allows you to do is really kill that ranged unit or that thing that, like that Shadow Sister or something over in the corner that's really giving you issues. If you aren't running Sunblooms. The thing is normally Lyonar wouldn't actually be able to kill those things. You would just Sunbloom them and then hope that negating those passive effects would actually work for you. The problem with Sky Burial is that you want to use this to pick off, like I said, those utility units like Four Winds Magi, Shadow Sister, ranged units, which Lucid Beam kind of wants to do at the same time as well. But the problem is if your opponent is playing aggressively towards you, steps forward, plays something right in your face, you can't hit it with Sky Burial because they're standing next to it. You have to be able to move away from it as well. You can't Sky Burial something that's provoking you because it's next to you. It's on any general, not just the opponent's general. So Sky Burial is going to be really good for like very specific cases, and that's why I think this spell actually is not good, because it's a bit too specific. It's not as versatile as Martyrdom is, because you can Martyrdom something in the early game and your opponent's not going to get that health gain because they're at near or at full health. So Sky Burial, not good. It's definitely interesting, but you'd have to combo it with a Repulsor Beast to get like guaranteed use out of it, and then that's like a 6-mana removal, and after you already removed it with Repulsor Beast, so I don't think this card's going to see play. And next we have Solarius, which is a 6-mana 3/3 with Zeal, so you can hit it with Afterblaze if you want. Draw 2 additional cards at the end of your turn. This card was originally spoiled by the Scientist, and he said that he expects this card to see constructed play. And I think that he's lying, because a 6-mana 3/3 is horrid. If you play this card when you're behind, it's just you're gonna die, because towards that mana, that's when whoever has the advantage is most likely getting ready to close out the game. Or you don't necessarily need to have an advantage. Depending on what faction you're playing, they might have some out-of-hand stuff coming at you. If you're playing against Songhai or something, right? So it's 6 mana. If you're behind, this is when you're going to be wanting to play 2-drop Holy Immolation or develop something else along those lines to bring yourself back into the game. Solarius is going to see play if we get really, really, really late game heavy control Lyonar decks in the meta again. And then that's when this Solarius, when it's not dealt with, is just chilling behind your general with Zeal, because it has to stand next to you, remember, for this effect to activate. And then you're just going to be drawing cards and drawing cards and drawing cards and refueling your hand. Because, again, that was one of the things that Lyonar struggled with, is that if you could deal with their threats consistently, then they would just run out of cards and they wouldn't have anything else to throw at you. And so Solarius allows them to keep going in the late game. So that is a good tool for them to pick up, but I don't think this card's going to be everywhere. And that's all I have to say about that. This will be the late game draw engine that Ekshun was supposed to be, that lion with force field. And so next we do have Sunforge Lancer. This card was spoiled, of course, a long time ago. Whenever any minion or general is healed, you give your general +1 attack. And you get to keep this attack just like Voth's Overload. So if you can get Sunforge Lancer to proc once, then your general has 3 base attack. And then you're just able to clear 2 drops a lot easier. So this thing is really going to carry you through the early game. Being able to combo this in the mid-late game and get a couple heal procs off is going to be really huge, because if you can get +3, base attack, then you're going to be clearing stuff just like Magmar does. Pardon me, my mouth is like so dry. But Lyonar doesn't worry so much about hitting stuff with their face. It's just a matter of actually clearing the stuff that you're hitting, because then you can just heal back up. So Sunforge Lancer has a lot of potential to get crazy value. Radiant Dragoon, I'm going to say, is a little bit better because it's easier to use, but Sunforge Lancer in the right heal deck can get you some really, really solid plays going. So we have Skyefallax lastly, of course. This was spoiled. It's an 8-mana legendary Lyonar spell. You summon 3 Silverguard Knights nearby your general, and it has been confirmed that you get to select the locations that they spawn nearby your general. It's not random. So this is nice. You can build that little L corner wall, or spread them out all around you to protect from, that Songhai minion that's chasing you down. You can protect yourself from all angles. At 8 mana, depending on the matchup, your opponent might have enough out-of-hand burst that it might not matter, but having a provoke wall around you cuts off a lot of options, and then you just have 3 5s that are just going to slowly run you down after that. So Skyefallax, really good, especially for super late game Lyonar control decks, which, as you can see by this set, is looking to be a thing again. And so there's Divine Bond again, and that is everything. Thank you for joining me for the Lyonar section of the Shim'Zar set review, and I will see you in the next video. You have a good